And hello, everybody, and welcome back to Zeke-ollege football. We had a jam-packed championship weekend, and quite frankly, there's a lot to talk about. As most of you already know, if you're college football fans, the 12-team playoff bracket has already been revealed, but we're going to get into that in a little bit. We're going to go through the action of championship weekend, what happened, who won, and then we will get into the 12-team playoffs. We will get into coach movement because there's been a lot of that as well. And then I will go through and rank each and every bowl game based on how important it is to me. And then we're going to highlight one specific bowl game to talk about, and it'll be the actual first FBS bowl game of the season because that's the only bowl game that's happening this week until I release another episode. So, with that being said, jam-packed episode, let's get started. First things first, starting off in Conference USA, Jacksonville State coming away with a big time win in the CUSA. They win the conference in their second year in the FBS. So, first year eligible for the championship game, and they win it. So, a good showing for them. They blew the doors off of their opponent. I mean, it it wasn't close between Western Kentucky and Jacksonville State. 52-12, the final score. So just just dominating stuff for Jacksonville State. Moving on to the MAC, Ohio. With the beat down on Miami, Ohio. Final score of 38-3. Park Navarro went off. Meanwhile, Brett Gabbert struggled a little bit, one interception, but it was just Navarro and the Ohio Bobcats shredding the defense of the Red Hawks. They went for 233 on the ground, 235 through the air. So really balanced attack there as well in the MAC title game. Moving forward to the Sun Belt. Marshall demolishing Louisiana. Kind of an unexpected result. We thought Louisiana was going to put up more of a fight, seeing that they were 10-2 coming into the game rather than 9-3. But man, Marshall just ran away with this one after an early field goal. Scored 31 straight points to end the game, and it really wasn't that close. Yeah, 31-3, dominating performance for the Thundering Herd as they win their first Sun Belt title. Moving forward to the American Conference, we have Army against Tulane. Army, another dominating performance. This one with the ground game. Bryson Daly ran for 4 touchdowns. Army, in their first year in a conference, cleans up the American. Their only loss on the season is to Notre Dame up to this point. So with those 4 games, they were all blowouts. And, you know, 2 of them were on Saturday, 2 of them were on Friday night, and none of them were close. The closest one of those was the American title game where it was a 21-point difference. So, yeah, we had some blowouts, but we also had some really close games as well. Let's kick it off by talking about the Mountain West. It was Friday night, basically a playoff game. The winner of the Mountain West title game would go to the playoffs. The loser would not. Boise State, just a dominating performance in the first half. They cooled off a lot in the second half, didn't score at all in the second half, but Ashton Genty took over. Maddox Madsen kept things going as well in the pass game. Their offense sputtered in the second half, but they did everything that they needed to. UNLV's red hot offense coming into the game was held to really in check for pretty much the entire game. Let up a little bit in the fourth, but 21-7, Boise State, uh, and they clinched a spot in the 12-team playoffs. We'll get into where they're seated in a little bit. Arizona State versus Iowa State, another play-in game where if they win, they're in, and the loser most likely would be out. Arizona State took care of business, 45-19. Cam Skattebo, off 16 carries, uh, went for 170, averaged over 10 yards per carry and 2 touchdowns. And Arizona State blew out Iowa State. So first year in the new conference, Arizona State makes it to the college football playoffs. That's not a spoiler. We knew they were going to. Uh, in things that will affect some seeding, but not much else. In the Big Ten, Oregon beat Penn State, and for the Nittany Lions, just a really tough result there. Uh, Obviously Oregon's the number one team in the nation, but another big game that you lose sort of inexplicably, and it will cause them to drop in the polls. Not too bad, but uh, again, we'll get into that in a second. Texas versus Georgia, rematch of the regular season, different time, same result. Georgia with an overtime victory this time over the Texas Longhorns. The big story in that game, Carson Beck injured at the end of the first half. It is, I believe, a UCL sprain. Let me just double check that I got the wording on that correct. But it seems unlikely that he will be ready to go for the playoff game. So it might be Gunnar Stockton, who came in relief. Stockton played pretty well in the limited action that he saw there. But just something to look out for. This number 2 seed might be a little bit sort of overblown, as we will see some results coming through. And then the final game of championship weekend, the ACC title game. SMU, with a win, would have clinched a first round bye. Clemson, with a win, clinches a playoff spot, but then that leaves a question, where does SMU go? So Clemson won. And the big debate, because it was a close game, 56-yard field goal game winner for Clemson. It was a close game. The big debate was, should SMU fall out of the playoffs or be penalized for playing in a conference championship game? And I think the decision that was made was the correct decision. And the big argument was between SMU being included or Alabama. And as we take a look here at the college football playoff bracket, you can see Clemson in at the 12 seed. They'll be facing off against Texas in Austin. Winner of that game will play Arizona State. You see Tennessee will be facing off against Ohio State. Winner of that game will play Oregon. We see SMU, which they dropped. They dropped a couple spots, but they are still in the playoffs and still have a chance. The winner of the SMU Penn State game will play Boise State. And then finally, Indiana versus Notre Dame. That one, an in-state rivalry, both of them playing really good football up to this point, and the winner of that game will play the Georgia Bulldogs with Gunnar Stockton. So very interesting uh, college football playoff matchups. I like I like the matchups here. I think the committee did a fantastic job because these are very unique matchups, um, and they're interesting. And I think that they'll be close games for the most part. And overall, I mean, I'm just very excited for every single matchup in this first 12 team playoffs. I think the committee did a good job with that. Um, but let's talk about the non-CFP bowl games. But before we do that, just want to go through some coaching news, keep everyone updated. A lot of coaching hires and fires. Um, UCF is where we'll start off. Gus Malzahn left UCF to become an offensive coordinator for Florida State, and they got their guy. UCF hiring Scott Frost, a very familiar name in that program. He led them to success back in 2017, and then got hired away to Nebraska. His Nebraska tenure, I wouldn't say forgettable. It was very memorable, but all the wrong reasons. They're hoping Scott Frost can bring that magic from 2017 back and help the UCF Knights. Purdue, with a big hire here. Barry Odom going back to the P4 ranks after a stint at UNLV. Uh, good. He's a good coach. He's built up the UNLV program to a spot that they have not been in a very long time. Yeah, I think that Purdue got a good one, and I think that it will pay dividends for them. App State hires Dow Loggins from South Carolina. Another good hire. South Carolina's offense very potent under Lenora Sellers this year. So it's going to be interesting to see how he adapts to a head coaching role. Southern Miss. This one was surprising to me. Charles Huff just won a Sun Belt title at Marshall. Gets hired away in conference to the Southern Miss Eagles, who are the worst team in the Sun Belt this year. Uh, Good hire for Southern Miss. Just shows the discrepancy between programs in conferences as well. There is still that hierarchy in terms of who can pay the most money, that sort of thing as well. Fresno State hires Mike Entz, former North Dakota State head coach, won a couple FCS national titles there. Utah State gets Bronco Mendenhall from New Mexico. This one made me pretty upset. I like the Lobos. I got a connection to the Lobos. If you go back on my channel, you can see that I have a Lobos dynasty. And Bronco Mendenhall did a good job at sort of rebuilding that Lobos program, got them to 5-7, a game away from a bowl game. And you're thinking, okay, I see the vision. I can't wait to see what they'll build for next year. And there is no next year now. It's frustrating, but Utah State heading to the Pac-12, New Mexico staying in the Mountain West. There is still that sort of difference there in terms of what's the bigger brand, where's the money. And it's frustrating, but I understand it. But then, the players heading into the portal as well. So Devin Dampier, most likely probably going to join his head coach at Utah State as well. And that's sort of the disappointing side of it, where you see a vision for a program that's sort of been beaten down and been in the muck for a while. Finally see a glimmer of hope and have that hope just snatched away by the greedy pockets of the Utah State Aggies. Tulsa hires Trey Lamb out of East Tennessee State, another FCS coach making the rise. Um, UMass hires Joe Harrismiak. Uh, Don Brown clearly didn't work out. Hoping that someone can build up this program. It's a tough, tough task to try to build up UMass into being a football team. Um, Ball State hires Mike Removich. He was previously at Butler. Has some, you know, head coaching experience, but I'm not. Out of all of the hires, he seems like one that I'm a little iffy on. And then FAU hires Zach Kittley, who is now the new youngest head coach in FBS football. He's only 33 years old. I think Kittley is a much better hire than some of the ones that they're rumored to be looking at. Celebrity hires like a Ray Lewis. At least Kittley's a coach, not just a former player. But let's talk about some of these non-college football playoff bowl game matchups and how interesting they are to me. So, for starters, uh, obviously, number one is going to be the team that I'm the most interested in. Uh, they're not in the college football playoff, but their bowl game is certainly interesting to me because it's two teams that I like quite a bit, and that's the Trans-Perfect Music City Bowl, Missouri versus Iowa, and I think that'll be a good game. Again, two teams they were supposed to play in this very same bowl game back in 2020. That one got canceled due to COVID, so it's going to be interesting to see them actually play this time. And I think this is a better Missouri team than we saw back in 2020. I think it is a worse Iowa team than we saw back in 2020. So I think it will be sort of flip-flop of what the result was going to be. And I would expect Missouri to win this one. But we're not going to make predictions for all of them. We'll get we'll get there during uh, the upcoming episodes where we're talking about the bowl games, recapping and predicting as well. Number two is going to be the Pop-Tarts Bowl. Iowa State versus Miami. I think that two ranked teams, two teams that sort of had higher expectations going into conference championship weekend, sort of faltered out. Um, but it should be a very good game, and obviously gets elevated by the sort of grandeur of the Pop Tart Bowl and the edible mascot. I think that's just neat. For me, number three is going to be BYU versus Colorado. Two teams that are in the same conference that missed out on the Big 12 championship game. It's basically a pseudo Big 12 championship game. If things fell a little differently, this could have been the Big 12 championship game, but it is going to be in the Alamo Dome. It's the Valero Alamo Bowl. Number 17 BYU, number 23 Colorado. Number four, another ranked v ranked matchup. This one's going to be the Cheez-It Citrus Bowl, South Carolina versus Illinois. Two teams that really overperformed from what their preseason expectations were, and two programs that I think are very, very interesting. Number five is going to be somewhat similar. It's two teams that are trending in different directions in the Kinder's Texas Bowl. It's Baylor and LSU. LSU had high expectations. They were ranked in the top 10 at one point this season, but sort of fell off towards the end of the season, still eked out a decent job, but obviously there was higher expectations for them. And meanwhile, the Baylor Bears, they sort of rebounded and turned their season into a really good one, are very, very hot team right now. They've won their I want to say, last six games of the season. And it should be interesting to see, can LSU, turn it around, win a bowl game with some extra coaching up, or, you know, cool off the momentum of Baylor. Number six, we have Georgia Tech versus Vanderbilt, two teams that have had a lot of sort of funkiness going on. Uh, Vanderbilt, with some crazy upsets. Obviously, the big upset against Alabama. Georgia Tech, another team that's very upset prone. They had wins against, at the time, number 10 Florida State. They also beat Miami and took Georgia to 8 overtimes. So, two teams that are very talented, and it'll be interesting to see who gets the last laugh in that one. Number seven is Tulane versus Florida. Tulane, a team that showed a lot of promise throughout the season. They faltered down the stretch. Um, and Florida, a team that people had very low expectations on going into the season, and really performed well with DJ Lagway at the helm, including two upsets late in the season, knocking off LSU, knocking off Ole Miss as well. Number eight, we're going to the G5 ranks. Georgia Southern versus Sam Houston. I think this one will be a pretty even matchup. Sam Houston doing really well. Again, they did lose their coach, so that might play into it. But Georgia Southern, a team that was on the cusp of a berth into the Sun Belt Championship game. Sam Houston on the cusp of a berth into the CUSA Championship game. So certainly something that's pretty interesting. And those are two teams that I think are fairly evenly matched. Number nine is going to be Texas Tech versus Arkansas. And that game is going to be, I want to say it's the AutoZone Liberty Bowl. Uh, Two programs that I think again are pretty evenly matched. Arkansas with some good wins on the season, some embarrassing losses on the season as well. Texas Tech, similar situation. They had some good wins, but again they just didn't do enough when they needed to. Number 10, East Carolina versus NC State in the Go Bowling Military Bowl. Uh, this one I think is interesting because it's two teams in the same state. They've played each other before. It was a close game before. ECU has their new coach. NC State, not the strongest looking P4 team. So it could be a pretty even matchup, especially with that sort of built-in miniature rivalry in there as well. Number 11 is not here because I think it's going to be a very close game. But it is here because of the storylines that come through it. The ReliaQuest Bowl, Alabama and Michigan. They played earlier this year in high stakes in the Rose Bowl, and now they are in the ReliaQuest Bowl. Alabama, a team that barely missed the playoffs. They are ranked at number 11, so theoretically they could have been in if it wasn't for conference champion getting auto bids. And Michigan, a team coming off of an upset against their rivals Ohio State to end the season. But other than that, they really looked almost lifeless throughout the season. Number 12, I have the Las Vegas Bowl between USC and Texas A&M, two big brands. USC, it'll be interesting to see how they play with Jordan Maeva at the helm, and Texas A&M with Marcel Reed, assuming that he's not still hurt. Uh, Number 13, we have the Holiday Bowl, Syracuse and Washington State. Um, Ranked Syracuse. Washington State was ranked for a decent chunk of the season. Did lose their last couple, coming off of an embarrassing defeat to Wyoming. Number 14, Miami, Ohio versus Colorado State in the Snoop Dogg Arizona Bowl. Um, so it's a team that lost in the MAC title game versus a team that was very close to making the Mountain West title game. Uh, I think that these are two teams that will create an interesting matchup as well. Number 15, we have the Serve Pro First Responder Bowl. between North Texas and Texas State. This one taking place in Dallas, and I think it'll be a good game. Um, Again, anytime that you have a bowl game between two teams within the same state that are in different conferences, I think it creates a little bit of an interesting matchup there and provides a storyline going into it. Number 16, we have Coastal Carolina versus UTSA in the Myrtle Beach Bowl. Coastal getting a home game, essentially. They're playing in their own stadium. And then UTSA, another team that has shown some bright spots, has shown some less than bright spots as well this season, but should be a good matchup between two sort of up and down teams. Number 17, we have Cal versus UNLV in the LA Bowl. Uh, this one I think will be neat. UNLV without their coach, Cal, not the strongest P4 team, but UNLV one of the stronger G5 teams. So it should be a relatively even matchup. Number 18, we have the Cure Bowl between the MAC champions, the Ohio Bobcats, and the CUSA champions, the Jacksonville State Gamecocks. Again, two conference champions facing off against each other. I think it's a good matchup. Number 19, Western Kentucky versus James Madison. Uh, Again, two of the stronger G5 teams in their relative conferences in the Boca Raton Bowl. Plus, I just think that the uniform matchup there will be pretty good. Number 20, Boston College versus Nebraska in the Bad Boy Mowers Pinstripe Bowl. I think that one will be interesting mostly because you have two sort of interesting streaks going into that. BC is 7-5, and they have a sort of tendency, no matter what, at the end of the season they usually end 7-6. So that it would make you think, oh, they're going to lose the bowl game. But Nebraska has not won a bowl game in a long while. So who's going to break their streak first? Is it going to be Nebraska winning a bowl game, or is it going to be BC beating the 7-6 curse, if you will? Number 21, Minnesota versus Virginia Tech in the Duke's Mayo Bowl. This one, I will be honest, is ranked this high because I think getting mayo dumped on you is really funny, and I wouldn't mind seeing either one of the coaches dunked in mayo. Moving on. Number 22, Duke versus Ole Miss. This one in the Tax Slayer Gator Bowl. I think it's a little bit worse of a matchup now after some recent news of Malik Murphy hopping in the transfer portal. But you still have, Duke looking for a 10-win season and Ole Miss trying to end their season on a strong note. And don't worry, I'll talk about the transfer portal some more as we get closer and closer to the off season. But yeah, some interesting stuff going on there. Number 23, we have Pitt versus Toledo, and that is going to be in the Game Above Sports Bowl. Probably the stupidest name of a bowl game that we've seen up to this point. Pitt, disappointing down the stretch. They lost their last 5 games. Toledo, also disappointed down the stretch. They lost against some inferior competition in the MAC by looking to try to rebound and end their season with a win. Number 24, South Florida versus San Jose State. San Jose State, strong showing this season in the first year under Ken Niumatalolo, trying to beat a South Florida team that made it to a bowl game. San Jose State played in the Hawaii Bowl last year and lost, hoping to avenge that. Also, it's in Hawaii and it's on the night before Christmas. So a good little pre-Christmas treat for us all. Number 25, Memphis versus West Virginia. Um, West Virginia still looking for a coach. Memphis, probably gonna win this one in the Scooters Coffee Frisco Bowl, but you know we're getting to the lower echelon of the list, so coming up with reasons and stuff like that probably a little weaker. I think the uniform matchup in this one will be pretty good though. Number 26, UConn versus North Carolina in uh the Wasabi Fenway Bowl. I'm going to this one in person, so if you want to come by and say hi, uh, I will be in attendance at the Wasabi Fenway Bowl. That being said, not the best matchup. I was hoping for a little bit better, but at the same time, if the rumors are true, Bill Belichick might be the head coach or the next head coach of North Carolina, so that will add some stakes into this game. Number 27, Rutgers versus Kansas State in the Rate Bowl. Not even the guaranteed rate bowl anymore. There's nothing guaranteed about it. It's just the rate bowl. Uh, for Kansas State, think you're a little disappointed in being matched up with Rutgers, but you know you got to win your games, and they didn't down the stretch. Number 28, Louisville versus Washington, two Power Five teams. Uh, that's That's the best I can say about it. Tony the Tiger Sun Bowl. Sun Bowl's a beautiful location. Number 29, Buffalo versus Liberty. Buffalo, really good season this year. Liberty, uh, disappointing season. There'll be some turmoil at the quarterback position with Kadon Salter in the transfer portal, but it'll be in the Bahamas, so it'll be fun. Number 30, Northern Illinois versus Fresno State. In the famous Idaho Potato Bowl. It is on the blue turf. The Northern Illinois was ranked at one point this season. I find that funny. Fresno, eh, disappointing year for them, but hey, they made a bowl game, so it's all good. Number 31, Marshall versus Army. Uh, I'm pretty low on this game. I know it's between two conference champions, and that sort of elevated other ones. But I think Army is a very sound team. Marshall lost their coach, got him poached by Southern Miss, so I think this one will be pretty lopsided in favor of the Black Knights. Number 32, uh, Oklahoma versus Navy. Oh, how the mighty have fallen for Oklahoma. I think that Oklahoma will probably win this one. But man, you know, the triple option does not sort of match up well against what I think Oklahoma will be. Number 33, Louisiana versus TCU. Louisiana, a team that it is tough for me to look at a game with these two teams and be interested in it. Um, there really isn't much else that I can say about that. Number 34, South Alabama versus Western Michigan. This one is the first bowl game of the season for FBS teams. That's about it. Uh, and then finally, Arkansas State versus Bowling Green. Ugh. I don't think Harold Fannin will be playing in this one for Bowling Green. Arkansas State, really nothing of note pretty much all season long. Bowling Green, close to a MAC title, I guess, is the best thing about it. But man, I think Bowling Green will win this one, and I'm pretty confident about that. So, uh, just going to close this out with uh, a new segment that I am calling Bowl Game Breakdown. Um, and so I'm just going to go in depth on one of the bowl games each week, And this one, there was really only one choice for me, which was the IS4S Salute to Veterans Bowl between South Alabama and Western Michigan. Uh, I will be watching this game because, of course, I will. But let's talk about it. So, first off, for South Alabama, they had a very streaky season. They lost two, won two, lost two, won two, before losing, winning twice, and then losing to end the season. So very up and down to get to 6-6. Uh, in terms for of players to look out for, Gio Lopez and Fluff Bothwell are players to watch out for on offense. South Alabama's defense, not great. For Western Michigan, the Broncos got a win against their rivals Eastern Michigan in order to reach this bowl game. They lost their previous three games before that. And then Hayden Wolf and Kenneth Womack are the players to watch on offense. So both of the quarterbacks are solid. I'm not going to say they're like amazing, but I think they're solid. Um, and you got the running game for Fluff with Fluff Bothwell for South Alabama. You got the passing game with Kenneth Womack at wide receiver for Western Michigan. So some players to look out for there. Neither defense is particularly great. I'd expect some scoring between these two. So in terms of predictions of score, I would predict that South Alabama is going to win this one 38-21. And that will do it for this week's episode of Zeke-ollege Football. Thank you so much for tuning in. I will be putting out some more content for the bowl games and stuff like that. But just want to let you guys know I am still a college student. So the set behind me is my college radio station. It's going to change up in the next couple of weeks. I'm going to be going home, having Christmas celebrations and stuff like that. So the posts might get a little bit less frequent because of that. But, just sort of wanted to, full transparency, just say I'm so grateful that we have reached my subscriber goal for the year. We reached 25 subscribers. I'm so excited that each and every one of you are along with me for this ride. So thank you, thank you, thank you. I'll be putting out some more content throughout the rest of the season and off season. Just I'm so grateful, so thankful for all of this. And without further ado, have a great rest of your day. Stay happy, stay healthy, and I'll see you all in the next episode.